Hello, role-playing people, and in this episode we're taking a look at the lore of the flesh, to the delight of quite a number of listeners who have been looking forward to this one, and replying to a few questions from Drogar Mythos, the Purple Dragon Wizard. Hello Drogar, I hope your demon game is awesome and you're having a blast. This lore was created after the rebellion during the Celestial War, and it allows Devourers to manipulate, enhance, restore, and reshape the flesh of mortals, turning them into a valuable resource on the battlefield and a force to be reckoned with. Without further ado, let's have a look at the evocations. Body control. This evocation allows the Devourer to alter the body chemistry of her host body and others. She can purge poisons, both natural and man-made, and increase or reduce metabolism. System: Roll Intelligence plus Medicine. The difficulty depends on the complexity of the metabolic change. Purging the body of fatigue poisons is difficulty 6. Forcing alcohol out of a person's system is 7 or greater, depending on the level of intoxication. Putting the body into a death-like coma is difficulty 9 or more. To perform this evocation on another, the demon must be able to make physical contact, and the individual can attempt to counteract the effort with a successful resisted roll using the victim's willpower. Difficulty 8. The effects of this evocation last for the duration of the scene, after which poisons removed or normal metabolism takes effect again. This evocation can alleviate one instance of poisoning altogether if a temporary willpower point is spent. Torment. Monstrous demons use a brute force approach when performing this evocation, putting a terrible strain on the subject. After rolling, total successes are compared to the subject's stamina. Successes that exceed the target's stamina are suffered as bashing damage, which may not be soaked. Okay, let me just say the examples of effects that can be achieved with this power aren't great, but this evocation can be fantastic. Being able to manipulate metabolism is amazing. I mean, the description says poisons may be removed, but that is only one aspect of metabolism called xenobiotic metabolism, and those poisonous foreign substances are usually broken down by hepatic enzymes, which activate them, then conjugate them with glucuronic acid or whatever have you, and then excreted. Some external substances are extremely toxic and very fast acting, way beyond the body's ability to handle naturally, so I think having to spend a temporary willpower point to completely and permanently purge a target of the effects of poison makes sense. But what about all the other types of metabolic functions? What if the Devourer can direct this evocation in such a way that they make a mortal break down its own tumors or cancerous cells? If the body can cannibalize the dysfunctional parts of itself, I guess this power can do a lot in terms of healing. Again, I feel like the terms metabolism or body chemistry are used here without really considering their complexity and the discrepancy between the description and the systems. What would controlling metabolism entail? Does it mean this power controls enzymes or hormones? Can it speed up cellular regeneration? How does it affect breathing? How does it affect cerebral functions? I mean, people can feel sick in a couple of seconds if they don't breathe right. More information would have been so nice, because metabolism is a complex thing. Or they could have said it only affects certain metabolic processes. Though it's not mentioned in the book, as storyteller, I've allowed my Devourer protagonists to, for example, affect glands, touch someone and give them a burst of adrenaline so they don't feel pain for 2-3 turns, or to get them through an allergic reaction, let's say. Maybe you can get someone to hyperventilate or deprive them of oxygen, and both of these things will make them quite unwell, even if the effects are light just for one scene. Now, in regards to putting living beings into a death-like coma, it is a very powerful effect, affecting living supernaturals as well, mages, werewolves, hunters, mummies, and so on. And as cool as it is, anyone who is subject to the evocation against their will gets a resisted roll, willpower difficulty 8, which has a higher chance of success than the demon's own Evocation roll unless the difficulty is somehow lowered using merits or specialties. Supernaturals are known to have higher willpower ratings, so using this one in a dangerous situation is a gamble. I wouldn't stake my protagonist's life on trying to slap a werewolf into a death-like coma, but hey, if the dice are on your side, it can be done. Not to mention, the player can always spend a temporary point of faith for an automatic success. Overall, a very interesting first dot evocation which can do quite a few things, even if used only as written. But I do believe it should have given more examples of what can be done in between helping someone break down alcohol, which is simple, and putting someone into a death-like coma, which is the most powerful effect the writers thought of. Next, manipulate nerves. Like body control, this evocation allows the demon to manipulate a subject's nervous system. Strength and reflexes can be enhanced, senses can be dulled or sharpened, or the person can be subjected to waves of intense pleasure or pain. System: roll intelligence plus medicine. The difficulty is determined by the complexity of the intended effect. Reducing the effects of pain is difficulty 6, while increasing the speed of a person's reflexes, increasing his dexterity, is 7 or 8. Sharpening a person's senses or dulling them might require a 9 or more. Each success increases or decreases a relevant physical trait or wound penalty by 1, as appropriate for the effort. The effects of this evocation last for the duration of the scene. To perform this evocation on another individual, the demon must be able to make physical contact, and a resisted willpower, difficulty 8, can be made to counteract your character's effort. Torment. A monstrous demon risks inflicting severe physical damage to a subject by crudely manipulating the victim's nervous system. After rolling, the total successes are compared to the subject's stamina. Successes that exceed the target's stamina are suffered as lethal damage. Let me just say I've never really understood why increasing reflexes and reaction time based off of dexterity is difficulty 7 or 8, while sharpening a person's senses is 9 or more. Also, what does that actually mean, mechanically? Reflexes rely on senses. They're a very rapid response to a stimulus, almost instant, mind you. It seems to me that this power enhances tactile sensations and not the stats from the mental attributes column, but of course a person's perception through sight, for instance, relies on functional eyes that won't twitch and spasm in all possible directions, making it impossible to see. So ultimately the perception attribute does sort of feed back into the physical column. But then I ask you this: how would an enhanced nervous system lead to an increase of stamina, which is indeed in the physical column, but not really tied to nerves? Certainly, the inability to feel pain when hurt would nullify wound penalties and would prevent involuntary jerking or spasms caused by pain, but would it increase the actual hardiness and resilience of the body? I don't think so. That being said, I find this evocation very confusing, and in our games, though it's not rules as written, we've only allowed effects such as the increase or decrease of strength, dexterity, perception, and wound penalties, as the subject's reflexes are either heightened or pain receptors are blocked, kind of like they have congenital analgesia. I don't think effects like increased dexterity and insensitivity to pain can be applied at the same time. But I don't know. Overall, I'm really confused about this particular evocation. I could see a lot of the effects making sense if the target has an adrenaline rush, including enhanced strength that the character didn't even know they're capable of. But this power is called manipulate nerves, not manipulate hormones or adrenaline rush. So I don't really get how the mechanics fit the description of the evocation. Next dot. Manipulate flesh. This evocation allows a demon to manipulate a subject's physical form, be it her own or another's. adding muscle mass, increasing bone density, or expanding mental faculties. System: roll intelligence plus medicine. Each success is a point that can be added to any of the subject's physical or mental attributes. There is a risk, however. Compare the total number of successes to the subject's stamina. Any excess successes are suffered as bashing damage due to system shock. This damage cannot be soaked. To perform this evocation on another individual, the demon must be able to make physical contact, and the individual can attempt to counteract its effects. The storyteller makes a willpower roll, difficulty 8. Torment. Monstrous demons alter flesh and bone without regard for their subject's frailty. If performed on another, a willpower roll is made for the subject, difficulty equal to the demon's torment. If the roll fails, the subject suffers a temporary derangement that makes him uncontrollably paranoid and prone to violence. If the roll is botched, the derangement is permanent. Okay, this one makes sense to me. I like this evocation a lot, and it actually feels like it's drawing from the previous ones, then taking them a step further. It can increase both physical and mental attributes, and while I originally felt that attributes like intelligence or wits should fall exclusively under the influence of the lore of longing, it actually makes sense that Devourers would be able to affect such functions as well. What scared me at first was the fact that this power seemingly makes permanent changes to a target's attributes, but that's not the case. The player's guide errata addresses this issue and says it only lasts for a scene. Now, what I don't like is the fact that the high torment power uses torment rating for difficulty. What if my Devourer with a torment rating of 4 actively wants to make an enhanced mortal aggressive and paranoid and send that mortal to vandalize a bar? Like I said in all previous episodes, high torment should pack a serious punch. But we are talking about a derangement here, which is serious enough, I guess. Personally, I think the difficulty should have been a constant 7 or 8. So low torment Devourers can use the high torment version intentionally and maybe get an interesting and quite dramatic effect. 4th dot. Restore flesh. The demon is capable of restoring an animal or person's body to its original form, no matter how torn or mutilated it has become. System: spend 1 faith point and roll perception plus medicine. Each success heals 1 level of lethal damage or all levels of bashing damage that the subject has suffered. Lost limbs or organs are restored completely, and any illness or poisons are purged from the body. Aggravated damage cannot be healed with this evocation, nor can the power resurrect someone who is already dead. The Devourer must be able to touch the subject to perform this evocation. Torment. Monstrous demons are capable of performing this evocation as well, but their ministrations are invariably tainted by hatred and pain. The storyteller makes a resisted willpower roll, difficulty 7, for the subject. If successful, the subject gains a temporary derangement. If the roll fails, the derangement is permanent. If the roll botches, the subject becomes a mindless, psychotic killing machine. I really like this one. Works like a charm, and it is here we can see the distinction between this lore and the lore of Awakening very clearly. So the Scourge's healing removes the gravest of fresh wounds, aggravated damage, but it cannot restore the already healed, crippled body to previous form and function. This lore, on the other hand, cannot heal aggravated damage at all, but it can restore both fresh wounds and a crippled body to previous form and functionality. It even purges any illness or poison. Wonderful. There is so much a demon who knows this evocation can bargain for, not only when it comes to physical disadvantages we can clearly see, missing limbs and such, but for relieving the pain caused by lifelong dysfunctions that we cannot immediately see, the internal damage and scars. Even better, the high torment power has a fixed difficulty of 7, so low torment devourers who are feeling mean might just bestow a derangement onto the target if that is their intent. This power does a lot. The phrasing is clear, the rules and mechanics support the description very well. What more could I say? It's an excellent evocation. Final dot. Shape flesh. The demon is capable of transforming human flesh into any shape desired. Mortals or fallen can become monstrous creatures straight out of legend. System. Spend 1 faith point and roll dexterity plus medicine in a resisted roll against the target's willpower. Difficulty 7. The player decides the form she wishes to create along with its relevant physical capabilities, and the storyteller determines the number of successes necessary to make the form a reality. These successes can be generated as part of an extended roll over a period of days, 1 roll per day, as the demon tinkers with her creation. As a rule of thumb, assume that each success confers or removes 1 physical attribute point or physical feature. The effects of this evocation last for a number of days equal to the character's faith score, or they can be made permanent by expending 1 temporary willpower point. Devourers can use this evocation on themselves or others as long as they can touch a subject. Torment. Monstrous demons' alterations are invariably warped by their torment, creating grotesque deformities that transform victims into walking nightmares. Such a hideous metamorphosis causes the victim to gain a temporary derangement and to suffer a level of lethal damage each day as a result of the intolerable strain placed on the body. Mortals who witness these creatures suffer the effects of revelation. Okay, this is where this lore goes completely nuts, and I love it, though the effects are described in a pretty ambiguous way. First of all, needs to be said, I don't think uses of shape flesh stack with uses of the previous evocations because this power aims to max out the functionality or potential of a predetermined shape. That's why the player decides what they want their character to create along with the physical capabilities of such a form, and the storyteller decides how many successes are needed. There are a few things that need to be clarified here. The rules from the core book state that mortals cannot have any trait above 5. So does this evocation ignore that rule? Also, just what shapes can be created with this lore, because the Visage itself, as we're about to see, is an idealized version of the mortal form which actually bestows social bonuses, not physical. Still, the description of this evocation says you can transform human flesh into any shape desired. So, can you turn someone into a dragon, along with the corresponding physical stats for such a form? Also, what happens if the power fails or botches halfway through the extended roll? Are all changes undone and the target reset to initial form, or does the poor mortal become a blob of flesh, at least for a few days, effectively being in between forms? But, by far, my biggest question is, what happens to the appearance trait? The description says any shape desired, but the mechanics say you can only increase or decrease the relevant physical capabilities. Considering, again, that corporal details and aesthetics are the purview of defilers, I believe in this case the Devourer affects functionality only, and the changes made to functionality automatically bestow a certain form. Let me explain. Say I want to enhance someone's strength by giving them Hulk-like arms. Okay, but that strength doesn't come from the arms alone. It's supported from the core, from the whole structure of the body. If I give them giant arms alone, the target's back will suffer under the weight of the added tissue, and the spine will not be able to support that upper body weight. Not in a bipedal stance, at least. So in this case, either I enhance the core of my target as well, making them bulky and muscular enough to support the weight of those arms while remaining bipedal, while remaining in human shape, or they become ape-like, also using their arms as a means of locomotion, right? Taking the weight off of that lower body and spine. Whatever the case, if we consider this example, the physical changes will be clearly visible on the target of this power. This isn't like potence or fortitude, where the enhancements to physicality are a property of the blood or magic and are not reflected in the aspect of the vampire. Oh no, this evocation makes very visible changes to a target, changes that will most likely affect their social traits as well, whether they stay within normal mortal parameters or go beyond. I mean, even at ratings of 5 in all physicals, which is the peak of human condition, we can imagine the target looks huge, bulky, like their muscles are bulging steel wires, like they can just snap you on their knee and soak hand-to-hand damage with ease. Now imagine how much all perimeters will change, height, weight, bone density, and so on, for a character whose physicals go up to 7. I mean, they are gigantic. They probably weigh as much as a bull. And also imagine the changes needed inside the body, right? To relieve the strain on the inner organs, which need to fuel and run this titan of flesh, this mountain of flesh. So yeah, I think whether you turn a human into a giant lizard or a little puppy dog, it's very important to really consider the social aftermath of such a change. Drogar asked what's there to stop a devourer from maxing out the physical stats of everyone they know. Well, rules considerations aside, not much, Drogar. This lore is extremely powerful. You can turn all the other player characters into hulking werewolves if you so desire, and if they so desire, but extreme reshaping of the body should have some serious narrative and especially moral consequences, and I also believe they should affect the other attribute columns. In regards to moral consequences, feel free to disagree with me. We're just trying to understand the rules as written and maybe tweak them a bit so they make sense better within the context of the setting. But I strongly believe turning human beings into inhuman shapes permanently should always result in the character gaining temporary torment points, 1 or more. Think about it. You're taking the sanctity of the human body, which belongs to the individual, a shape that is already perfected to allow for a wide array of functions and is to be further sculpted by its own possessor, the human soul inhabiting the flesh. And you're desecrating it outright by either making it less, like turning someone into an animal, or boosting only certain functions to inhuman levels, turning that target into what can only be called a monster. Now, this is something which would not only be done against the will of that mortal, as you force them to assume a shape of your liking, but it would probably remind any devourer of the horrors they created during the war, during a time in which they carelessly used mortals in their battle against the host. So I would say up to a rating of 5, the power can be used without acquiring torment, since no one is harmed in any way. The physicality is enhanced to peak human levels and all is good. Turning even a servant who is loyal to the Devourer into what I can only describe as a Dark Souls boss of tremendous physical ability, something that resembles a creature of legend more than a human being, like a drake or a minotaur, that should always bestow torment and obviously will cause revelation, because the entity which results from abusive use of this evocation is obviously not human anymore. But hey, feel free to disagree with me. The rules are super open to interpretation when it comes to this power, so each group can decide what they want more of or less of, but I love it, especially as storyteller. This one can really take the body horror potential of the game to unprecedented levels, and from some regards, it's even more effective than the Tzimisce's vicissitude. Now let's have a look at the apocalyptic form. Aruru, the Visage of Flesh. The angels of the flesh, who can alter their forms more completely than even the defilers, manifest themselves as idealized versions of their own mortal forms. The power exalts the mortal shell that they inhabit, removing any blemishes or deformities and refining their original features to perfection. In a way, this makes their appearance just as alien and wondrous as the shimmering apparitions of their celestial kin. The Visage of Flesh confers the following special capabilities. Enhanced social traits. The refinement of the character's features, mannerisms, and voice provides the following bonus traits: +1 charisma, +1 manipulation, +2 appearance. Immunity to poisons. The character is immune to damage or impairment from any toxins, including alcohol and nicotine. Improved initiative. Add 2 to the character's initiative. Cast no reflection. The demon's image does not appear in a mirror, nor can it be captured in a photograph or by a video camera. Torment. High Torment Aruru bear little resemblance to human beings, their original shape being lost in a swollen mountain of undulating flesh. Muscle, bone, and organs roil and shift from one moment to another without the demon's conscious control. The Visage of Flesh confers the following High Torment special capabilities. Extra health levels. The demon gains 3 extra bruised health levels for the purpose of absorbing damage. Armor. The demon's undulating mass of gristle and flesh provides 4 levels of armor for the purpose of soaking bashing, lethal, and aggravated damage. Gaping Maw. The demon can chew and digest almost anything, metal, stone, or flesh. The difficulties of bite attacks decrease by 2, and the bite itself inflicts strength +4 aggravated damage. Regeneration. The demon regenerates 1 health level of bashing or lethal damage per turn automatically as a reflexive action. Alright, I think the High Torment versions are absolutely fantastic, and to have even one of those on top of the perfected shape of the human host body with high physical stats is just insane. I mean, you can probably wrestle werewolves at this point, and the description of the tormented form is straight out of horror movies. The low torment forms like Cast No Reflection add a little bit of stealth to something which might look distinctly inhuman, so it can be very useful. The immunity to poisons is always nice, and the improved initiative makes sense as the Fallen shows confidence in their ability and is eager to engage, because they know they can strike really hard. What doesn't make sense to me after having just read the 5th evocation is the enhanced social traits. We are talking about the House of Blood and Bone, the most savage of the Fallen, the ones who are known for their short fuses and lack of etiquette, coupled with ferocious combat ability. And the apocalyptic form bestows social trait increases? See, I can understand that under one condition, and that is if the 5th evocation of the Lore of Flesh is limited to shapes that are humanoid and enhance the features of the human form. But to have Devourers whose very apocalyptic forms are perfected human shapes, and yet they can turn mortals into anything else, beasts of legend, even against the target's will without gaining any torment, that just doesn't make sense to me. So this is something I invite every player and storyteller to consider carefully. To me, what makes sense with this apocalyptic form as written is low torment application of the shape flesh evocation results in a harmonious, powerful, gracious, and resilient human body in all of its splendor. High torment applications probably result in frightening or outright disgusting monstrous forms that have tremendous physical ability, like maybe you can crank the stats up to 10 or beyond, but they outright break any version of the masquerade the storyteller might have in their game and probably cannot be supported for long, putting a tremendous strain on the body, forcing it to either destroy itself or revert back to a more common form. At least this would be my take on this matter. So there we have it. The lore of flesh, the power to manipulate, enhance, restore, and reshape the flesh of mortals, one of the most interesting abilities in the game from my point of view, and sadly, another one of the powers which could have benefited greatly from more careful design and better writing, not only because it overlaps in a strange way with the lore of transfiguration, but because the descriptions of the evocations and the rule systems of the evocations are disjointed from one another for the most part, and you want the description to match and to explain the mechanics in a way that is consistent with the setting and the lore of the game. With a few clarifications and with solid communication between players and storytellers, this lore can be mind-blowing. Thank you very much for listening, take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.